We've now had our Renault Megane E-Tech electric for almost 2 years, so I think it's a very good time to try and take stock. Normally, when I test electric cars, I only have them for a week at a time, but since this is our own car, I've had a bit more time to evaluate it. So in this video, I'll go through the car and tell you what's been good and what's been bad so far. The Renault Megane is a mid-sized car in the same class as, for example, the Volkswagen ID.3, and I think Renault has hit the mark. In my opinion, it's a really nice car that looks modern without going full sci-fi. The cabin is also nice for a car in this price range, with details like ambient lighting and Alcantara along the doors, a fabric-covered dashboard, and white and yellow stitching throughout. It comes with a 60 kilowatt-hour battery, which gives a WLTP range of 442 kilometers. When driving on the highway in the summer, it gives you a real range between charging stops of between 200 and 270 kilometers, which in my opinion is enough for most people. In the winter, expect around 250 on a full battery. Fortunately, you don't have to worry too much about the range in the Renault Megane, because Renault has been sensible enough to install Android Automotive as the car's operating system. This means that in addition to having navigation based on Google Maps, it's also really good at calculating your consumption in advance. It can therefore, with quite high precision, tell you if you have enough power to reach your destination, how much you can expect to arrive with, and if you need to charge along the way. In the summer of both 2024 and 25, we went on road trips to Italy in the car, and my experience is that the system's estimates are quite accurate. I haven't yet experienced arriving with less power in the battery than the car's original estimate, only the opposite. It's actually an incredibly nice feature because you can rely on the number it gives you, unlike the usual kilometers left in the tank figure that both electric and gas cars have. That number changes constantly depending on your driving, but Google's estimates take into account the route you're driving, the current traffic situation, and even what the weather is like. As a new electric car owner, that can help provide peace of mind and cure range anxiety. But even if you've been driving an electric car for several years, like me, it's actually pretty cool that the car can tell me that if, for example, I were to go to the opera with my current state of charge, and choose not to charge beforehand, I'll still arrive with about 7% left on the battery. One thing I also like is that you can decide for yourself which charging network the car should suggest when it plans your route. Even though it's getting better every year, we're unfortunately still not quite at the point where you can just pull up to any charging provider and expect to pay with a regular credit card without having to sign up as a customer in an app. And we're also not at the point where you can expect the price you're going to pay per kilowatt hour to be roughly the same everywhere. That's why there's still a need to be able to prioritize which charging providers you prefer. When I first got the car, the list of providers you can choose from was somewhat lacking when looking at Denmark. But it has gotten better over time with more providers appearing on the filter, but there are still providers you can't select. The system can easily find those chargers when you manually search for charging stops, so they're in the system, but you just can't filter for them and ask the navigation to prioritize them. I hope that Google continues to expand the filter options because other manufacturers like BYD sometimes have a better selection. Now, of course, you could say there are limits to how much you need it in Denmark, where distances are relatively small and there are plenty of places to charge. But I hope the list continues to be updated so we can get an even more granular selection. Speaking of updates, the system in the Renault can, like in many other cars, be updated over the air, but after almost 2 years, I still haven't seen a single update. It's a bit disappointing, knowing that, for example, newer versions of the Megane have received a newer software version. Renault could learn a bit from Tesla there, because I think it's an old-fashioned mindset to think I have to buy a new car to get access to new features. Why not continuously improve the car I already have? So it's such a good experience that I choose the same brand next time it needs replacing. That being said, I'm actually quite glad I haven't received the new design that newer cars' infotainment systems have, because I think it feels like a bit of a visual downgrade. But I know there have also been improvements, like the car giving an audible signal if the lane assistant turns off because it can't see the lines on the road. Something I specifically mentioned as one of the shortcomings when I tested it. Fortunately, the car's assistance systems otherwise work well, even with the software currently in my car. It's easy to activate the adaptive cruise control and lane assistant at the same time just by pressing two buttons on the steering wheel. One to activate the cruise control and one to set the speed to the current speed limit. And because the car has automatic sign recognition, you don't have to drive at the maximum allowed speed to set the cruise control to that value, and it works really well. It's also cool that the car can change speed itself when speed limits change without me having to do anything, and that in many cases it even slows down before, for example, hitting a lower speed limit because it knows it in advance. It doesn't always work, and sometimes it also changes the speed to something wrong because the car's map data has different information than the current one, and that's annoying. But that's how it is with most systems. They're no better than the data they have available. But despite the system not being perfect, I wouldn't want to be without it. However, I still think it's strange that there's a toggle in the car's settings to choose whether you want to use the automatic speed adjustment or not. But then the car still disables the function every time you turn it off. Fortunately, you can hold a button down on the steering wheel for 3 seconds to reactivate the function, so you don't have to go into the car's menu system every time. But it's strange that the setting is there when it doesn't save. They could fix that in a software update if they'd actually bother to release one. The lane assist itself also works well, as long as you're driving straight ahead. If the road curves too much, it can't stay in the lane, but it's fine on highways and country roads without big turns. However, it does need clear lines to steer itself on country roads. Without clear markings, it doesn't work. Fortunately, it handles highway on-ramps well, something older cars don't do well because they don't get that the lane briefly gets much wider. It's nice the Megane doesn't have that issue, but it would be great if it could also handle narrow lanes like during roadwork. Unfortunately, it can't do that, but otherwise the lane assist works really well on the highway and it's an incredibly pleasant feature when you're driving long distances. Especially since the car has a touch-sensitive wheel, so it feels your hand on it, which is required to let the car steer. Many cars require you to nudge the wheel every 30 seconds, or at least provide some resistance, so the car knows you're there. The problem is that if you're driving straight, the car doesn't turn the wheel much, so it can't feel if there's any resistance. So the result is that you have to pull on the wheel yourself at regular intervals. You avoid that with a touch-sensitive wheel, where just touching it is enough, and that's really nice on long drives. The Renault Megane also has a parking assistant that can back into a spot for you or parallel park without you doing anything but activating it and lightly pressing the gas. It actually works quite well, but the only time I've used it was when I made a video about the feature. The car is very cautious when parking, so it's way too slow for my taste. I can do it much faster myself, but if you're the type who doesn't like parking, well, the car can do it for you. You just need a little patience. If you've seen my other EV videos, you know that as a tech nerd, I care about how well the car's software works. And luckily, it works well in the Renault Megane. Renault chose to use Android Automotive instead of developing their own software, and I think that's absolutely the right decision. They've also made sure to give the infotainment system a proper processor, so everything runs fast and smooth without stuttering or lag. Some other manufacturers could definitely learn from that. Software can be as advanced as you want, but if the operation is slow and sluggish, it's kind of pointless. In the Megane, navigating the menus is fast and everything responds and loads without delay. Since the system is based on Android Automotive, you can also install third-party apps from the Google Play Store. I installed both Amazon Prime Video and a virtual fireplace when I got the car. But to be perfectly honest, I've never actually used them. We chose the model with the electronic rearview mirror and we haven't regretted it. The view through the rear window is actually not very good, but we don't notice it because of the electronic mirror. Another advantage is that we never need to adjust the rearview mirror, regardless of who is driving the car. It always shows a perfect view. And it also works perfectly for knowing when to pull back in after overtaking, because the car behind becomes visible at about the same time as it would be the case in a regular rearview mirror. The only downside is that a few times I've caught myself looking at the mirror just to see if my hair is okay, and for obvious reasons, that doesn't work. There is also plenty of space. Now, we don't really use the back seat daily, but when we have passengers, it works fine. 3 people can sit in the back seat, but as in most other cars of this size, it's most comfortable with a maximum of 2. The trunk also has a good size. Yes, it would be nice without the high loading lip, but on the other hand, there's plenty of space and an extra storage compartment for the charging cable under the floor. It works well, although a frunk probably would have been more practical. All in all, we are still incredibly happy with the car. It drives really well, and we haven't experienced any problems with either electronics or mechanical parts. It's comfortable to drive on long trips, thanks to the good assistance systems and the well-functioning route planning that automatically adds charging stops and shows the expected state of charge. Of course, it would be nice with a slightly longer range, but it actually fits quite well with a driving break every 2 to 3 hours. And in everyday life, we drive so little that it can easily be 1 to 2 weeks between charges. We don't have a charging station at home, so we have to charge at public stations, and here it's also a huge plus that the Megane can charge at 22 kilowatts instead of 11 kilowatts, like most other cars. This means that if I put it to charge at a station I have to myself, I can fill the battery in about 3 hours instead of having to wait 6 hours for a charge. And that is really an advantage you shouldn't underestimate if, like us, you don't have your own charging station. I hope you learned a bit more about the Renault Megane. Please give this video a like if you found it useful, and if you want to see more videos about electric cars and tech, you can subscribe to my channel for free. Just click on my picture. You can also support the channel here with a small amount by buying me a cup of coffee, and if you want to see more videos right away, there are 2 other ones for you right up there. See you soon.